Welcome back to another episode of the Don't Wait for Your Wake Up Call podcast. This is a special Podapalooza episode. I'm really excited to have Dr. Jill Rosenthal here with me today. Welcome to the show, Dr. Jill.
Thank you. It is so great to be here.
And let me just introduce you to the audience as we dive in. Jill Rosenthal is an award-winning Harvard and Stanford educated physician who retired after 35 plus year career and has become certified as a wellness and mindset coach. Her extensive experience and training, coupled with her own transformation from a stressed, overworked, unhealthy physician, wife, and mother into a happy, healthy, thriving coach, make her uniquely equipped to help others release unconscious thoughts, emotions, and behaviors that hold them back so they can create their dream life. And thank you for coming on this show to talk about this, as I have other shows recently talking about burnout, which sounds exactly what you went through. And
Yeah,
I know it's something that many healers, many physicians go through. So I would love for you to share your
it
story.
is. And actually, a fair number of my clients are physicians. And, I was chugging along, doing most of the things I like to do, and way too many of the things I didn't like to do. And then had to do a timeout. I was taking care of my parents from across the country, and in a 2-year period, I lost both parents. I had foot reconstruction. My husband went to assisted living. He has Alzheimer's disease, raising a teenager. And then while I was still out on medical leave for my foot reconstruction, I got into bed one night and I found a breast lump. And so I got on the breast cancer train later that week. And so I had surgery, I had radiation, I had chemotherapy. So everything I just told you, and probably I left some stuff out, um, that was all in a 2.5 year period. And
And that is
so,
a
like,
lot.
when
That is so much for your nervous system to be
it
able
was,
to
it
cope with.
was, it was a lot. And I
One
did.
thing after another,
It
stack.
was one thing after another, and I strongly believe that the breast cancer was largely due to the chronic stress I had
Hmm.
been under for so many years of taking care of everybody else but myself. And the thing is, when your wake up call is cancer, you got to stop because cancer. And
Yes.
so, I still was doing some online work. I was managing my team, and I tried to go back to work to see patients in clinic, and I just was not able to do that after my treatment. And I eventually had a disability retirement, and which was sad because I loved what I did. I loved my patients. I adored my team, but it was kind of killing me, and I couldn't do it anymore in the way that it needed to be done. And I ended up
And I
enrolling
just
in.
want to stop you there because you said some key words there that you kind of glossed over. The kind of killing me.
Yeah,
Because
it
really, if you,
was.
it would have if you hadn't
It would
stopped and
have.
made significant change.
Yes. And so, I realized at that point that something did have to change. And
Hmm.
what needed to change
Was
was
you.
me, right? Not just all the stuff around me, right?
Hmm.
And realizing that, um, then you have the power,
Yes.
right? You don't need
Yes.
the rest of the world to change. You can change things in the world, but you first have to change what's happening in your head and your heart and your gut. And
And the
so
reality is the only thing you can change is you.
is you, right? You can't control other people. You can only control you. And when you do change what you do, that does affect them. It does change them. If you're getting all triggered about stuff, then, and by stuff, I mean a different word. Um, but I don't know what on your program, how it goes. But that drives other people's behavior. And so when you're able to just be calm and present and listening and curious, they're not getting as triggered. So it actually does, you change your side of the dance, they have to change
Exactly.
their part too. So I ended up getting a bunch of coaching certifications, and I became a coach, and I discovered it was like my life's calling. I became a coach by accident. Seriously, my first coaching certification, I had to log a lot of hours coaching people. And so, I thought I'm just doing this to learn for me, right? And then maybe I'll do a little coaching if I feel like it. And then as soon as I started doing it, I was hooked. And that was it. It wasn't something I wanted to do, it was something I had to do because I just loved it and I was good at it. And so,
And that's why all of those other things happened for you
right.
to
And
direct
so
you
many
into
things,
your
right.
life's purpose and passion.
So many things, so many good things happened for me after that. Am I sorry I got cancer? Of course I'm sorry I got cancer, right? But but I'm not sorry that I got a new career. I'm not sorry that I met, like, I love all the people that I've met and what I've been able to do and help people with as a result. Um, and so, like, I can't be totally, well, screw that cancer, right? Because it did bring me, and if it comes
And
back, I might
there's
have to sing a different
there's
song,
some gratitude in
but
it
yes,
because it brought you to a
because
new place and new learning.
it totally did. And here's, part of what it brought me to, like I told you that story. Most people would run screaming from the room.
They would.
But Jill 2.0, the current version of me, really does not get stressed about stuff, right? I notice it. I'm like, I let it go. Not, I don't push
Love
it
that.
away. Pushing it away is what gets people in trouble. That's how you get heart
Right.
disease,
That's the
cancer, all these things,
resistance.
right?
And the
That's how,
resistance is
you can't,
persists.
yes, what you resist persists totally. It's, the Bob clown, those inflatable clowns with the weight
Yes.
in the bag, you push it down, right? So you have to actually process it and feel it and let it go. Because, and you can't be like putting your hand on the hot stove and leaving it there,
Correct.
right? You have to pick it up and then you can start to do stuff. And so now, if something, you get that little hit of, you know, but it's transient because I can let it go and then just go and take the action or do whatever it is that I need to do without staying tied up in knots over it,
Right.
because you cannot function like that. And um, it, it's just terrible for your body.
It
It's
is.
terrible for your immune system. It's terrible for your brain. It's terrible for your blood sugar. It's just, and people, we're like the frog in the boiling, in the water, in
Mhm.
the hot water, and it gets hotter and hotter and hotter, and we don't realize it because it's happening gradually,
Yeah.
and
In,
we think we
in
can do it.
in my work with all of this, I know that 90% of all doctor's visits are due to stress. And in that, where I saw that stat, I also saw that 69% of all dis-ease is caused by stress. And I've said that to doctors before who have said, I would venture to say it's even higher than that. And I don't know how
Yeah,
you agree with
it's,
that.
I think as we learn more about how stress impacts the body, um, people are coming to believe that more and more. But the thing is that we have to understand that stress, like, we all have stress around
Mhm.
us. Like, we all have, there are things that in the world and in our lives that we don't like. There's always going to be somebody who says something obnoxious. There's always going to be somebody who, cuts you off in traffic or whatever. But um, whether that bothers you
Mhm.
and how long you let it bother you is, that's in your control. But it's not a matter of like just telling yourself, don't think about that, don't worry about that. You have to actually feel it. And my husband, many years ago, when he, had brain power, told me this, and this is like decades ago, and he told me this story about like two monks or something who were like, they're walking along and they get to a river and there's a woman who wants to cross the river. There's no bridge and she can't swim. And so one of them picks her up and they wade through the river, and the other one's like, we're not supposed to touch women. How could you, like, he gets to the end and he's like, he's going on, they're walking, and he's like, how could you do that? We're not allowed to touch women. And the first one says, well, I just carried her across the river. You've been carrying her for the last 3 hours. Right? And so, you know, how we hold on to this stuff makes a difference. That the hot stove. Do we keep our
Yes.
hand on the hot stove? And sometimes keeping your hand, this is important, keeping your hand on the hot stove becomes part of our identity.
Hmm.
It's our badge of courage, right? If I'm not mad about this, then I'm saying it's okay. Or if I'm not upset about this, you know, like it, we think that I'm not a good mother if I don't spend my life in misery because my adult child won't talk to me, right? It's part of, what we think we have to be. And of course, we want our adult children to have a good relationship with us. It's, one of our kids are one of the most important things in our lives. But if your identity is so tied up to that, that you think, if I let this go and just accept it, that it means I'm a bad mother, and so I have to hold on to it, then it still hurts us. And eventually that all of those stress responses, bit by bit by bit, you throw enough pebbles
It
on a
fills up the
wheelbarrow
jar
and all of a sudden it's, you know,
and
you got
becomes
a rock.
overwhelming. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
So I love, I don't love your story. However, I love hearing your story and then where you've come to and how you're helping others now. And I would love for you to share what are some of the, key learnings that you've had in terms of being able to now be in this place where Jill 2.0 doesn't react, doesn't feel the stress. You obviously have a strong self-care practice that allows you to keep your nervous system regulated. So what are you doing?
yeah. And I'm a work in progress, right? I don't
We all
exercise as
are.
much as I would like to, but I'm very good at regulating my nervous system. I'm A plus at regulating my nervous system. And that's one of the things that I work with all of my clients, not just for like things in the moment, but in actually healing the stuff that they've been carrying around so it no longer triggers them and it no longer bothers them in the least. So a lot of it really is managing that. What happens to you when stuff is coming at you? And some of that has to do with, a lot of it has to do with boundaries,
Hmm.
right? And boundaries are not, a lot of people think boundaries are telling people what they can and cannot do or say to you, right? Um, but it's more about how you respond when
Yes,
they do it because you can't control them, right? Like you might be able to tell people in your family, don't call me after 10 p.m., right? But you can't tell the whole world. You can't hold everybody in the world responsible for knowing that you don't want to be called after 10. And you go on a trip to the East Coast and all of a sudden, the West Coast people call you at 9:30, but it's 12:30 on the East Coast where you can't hold people responsible for that, but you don't have to answer the phone.
correct.
And you can put your phone on Do Not Disturb. So a lot of it has to do with how am I going to respond? If someone calls me, if someone calls me when I'm on a coaching call, I look to make sure it's not the memory care unit. right? Because if it's
Hmm.
the memory care unit, I
Not
know
your husband,
to
yes.
just make sure everything's okay.
Yes.
But otherwise, it's just going to voicemail. That's my boundary right now. I'm willing to take that call.
Hmm.
But um, but we get to choose what bothers us. But it has to be done from the inside. And so boundaries have to do with, I mean, some of it is logistics, right? Shut your door when
Absolutely.
you need to. Tell people, I'm going to be on a call for the next hour. Put it in your calendar. Do, whatever it is. Like you can train people some of that stuff. Set up office. Like there's all sorts of stuff like that. But a lot of it is the inner work. And frankly, what stops people from taking all the actions, like the physical actions they could do to insulate them a little bit from the rest of the world. I'm going to come back to that. The thing that keeps them from doing that is their own internal boundaries. Like, I couldn't possibly do that. But, right? And so it's that mindset thing that, like, giving yourself permission to do this, that's really the core of everything I do with people. And I just want to come back to that sort of insulating. You're sort of like, you want to have a protective bubble that keeps out the stuff that really has no business getting to you. But it's not about insulating yourself from the world and from other people. It's really about connecting.
Hmm.
Life is about connecting with people. And so getting rid of the garbage allows you to connect with people. And in fact, uh, when people are feeling overwhelmed, one of the best things they can do is to take a quick action that helps them connect with other people. And I actually have a challenge that I send people that they can do on their own time. So it's kind of an interesting, the interplay between what are you going to let in and how are you going to respond to it, and let in, be porous to the good stuff.
Yeah, it's about, elevating and connecting with the people that lift you up
Yeah,
and
and lifting
releasing the
and
people
lifting
that
them up.
and lifting them up and then maybe releasing the people that don't. So I love this conversation. I
Yeah.
agree wholeheartedly with everything that you've shared here. And I know we could chat for longer, Dr. Jill, and we definitely
I'm
will.
sure we could go
However,
for
for
a long time.
today's purposes, please let me know. I ask every guest on the show this. What does don't wait for your wake up call mean to you?
Well, personally to me, I have to go back to my cancer, right? Like my wake up call was cancer. But even that I have to, it's like a grain of salt, right? Because it brought me a lot of good things. But certainly I was suffering in a lot of ways prior to that. And I was not being in allowing myself to be the dumping ground and the take care of everybody thing. I actually wasn't being the model I wanted to be, right? To my daughter. So, like, the wake up call to me is like, notice what's going on around you and inside of you and decide, is this what I want? Because if it's not exactly what you want, you can totally have it be what you want.
And you're a perfect
You might
example
need
of
help
that.
doing it,
Yes.
right? You might need some guidance so that you feel that you can, but you can have what you want, and don't wait until you have a life-threatening illness that takes away your career if you love your career, or takes away, don't do that.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. And if somebody wants to reach out and work with you, Dr. Jill, what's the best way for people to get hold of you?
They can go to my website, and if they want, they can book a quick call or a longer call. My website is drjillrosenthal.com, and I have a gift that they can get about 31 quick actions, quickies they can take to help set boundaries and get their life back. And they can get that at drjillgift.com/boundaries.
Perfect. I will make sure
And
all
if
of
anybody
that.
wants to know about the connection challenge, they can ask me about that too.
Wonderful. I will have all of that in the show notes. And is there any last word of or words of wisdom you would like to share with the audience?
I think it's just that like you are in control of all of this, and you have to be able to let stuff go. And if you can let everything go, just surrender and see what the universe brings you. You have to be paying attention though.
That's beautiful. I love that word of surrender. And thank you so much for coming on the show, Dr. Jill. Thank you to my audience for tuning in and listening to each and every episode of the Don't Wait for Your Wake Up Call podcast. And if you know someone that needs to hear this message from Dr. Jill today, please share this podcast with them, and see you back here next week at the same time.